But the album that we actually bought, me and my friends, was Three of a Perfect Pair. How about you, Coz? What did it for you?
I think it's a toss-up, because on the one hand, Discipline, I got into it with the 80s band as well. It wasn't the Fridays show, but MTV's Saturday Night Concert, they played the Live in Japan concert.
Yeah.
And I already kind of was aware of the music from some of the other drummers I knew in high school. And so that was the era that did it for me. But then when I got, like, my introduction were the 80s records and Red. And so it's kind of Discipline on the one side and Red on the other, because you've got that precision, but then you've got that visceral impact of Red, which always just hit me in the gut really hard. So
my path's probably a little bit different. I'm a bit on the younger side. I grew up with King Crimson. My mom was a fan. My uncles, I just grew up listening to it. And for one of my first primal memories as a kid is The Wake of Poseidon.
Nice. Great album.
Just the cover as a kid was fascinating with all the faces and the colors on it. Yeah. But the music was enthralling. I mean, and I know that's the sophomore album, and it often kind of gets like overlooked, but there's some real gems on there.
Yeah, Devil's Triangles on that.
Pictures.
Yep.
And that was just nothing in my mom's music realm on the turntable sounded like that music. That music was very different, and it was always kind of special to me as a kid. My formative relationships with listening to stuff like Zeppelin and Deep Purple and Sabbath and AC/DC and all the stuff I grew up with. That always kind of stuck with me, but I became my own fan of it with Discipline. Hearing that sort of post-punk and Afrobeat influence coming in from when, Fripp and Ballou were working with Talking Heads and working with Eno, bringing that kind of stuff in, the Chapman Stick with Tony Levin.
And the hybrid kit.
And all the different technologies that were coming in. Fripp finally had stuff that he didn't have to invent anymore with his rig. They're making stuff for him now. Yeah. That album was a game changer for me, and I was coming out of being a metal guitar player, like playing thrash metal and hardcore death metal, and hearing that was like, oh wow, how do you do that?
Same here.
Right.
I mean, I was total like Metallica, Iron Maiden, Black Sabbath, Yes, and Rush, and that's probably what kind of opened the door to me to King Crimson. So, like when I first heard it was Elephant Talk. And that line on that Chapman Stick, I'm thinking that was 1981. And even now, no one is doing anything like that. No one. I mean, seriously, there is like a resurgence of like the shred era on YouTube. You can find 12-year-olds in Korea that like play Yngwie Malmsteen, right? Mm-hmm. But there's no content. You know what I mean? There's a lot of, it's like what James Brown said, talking loud and saying nothing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So for me, when like Discipline came around, took my head off, and there's another one like that, Beat, and there's another one like that.
Yeah.
So I wanted to have the cover of those three albums tattooed on my back at one point in my life, and I am glad now that I did not have that done.
Thank you.
Right.
It's really hard to get across the technological impact, not just for the technology's sake, but how they were able to wield the technology at the time and what a massive impact that made. I know for me, and Coz, I'd like to hear you what your thoughts are on this. When I first saw Simmons drums, it was Bill and Octobans too, and it was the first time I'd ever seen acoustic drums with other elements, and especially integrating electronic drums. And of course, none of us had heard any of those kinds of sounds. Right. And did that have a influence on you at all?
Oh yeah, Bill Bruford's 80s kit, and then into the Earthworks era and all that. There was that British rock school set of videos where he talks about like, hey, you've got this instrument, and yeah, they look like drums, and you hit them like drums, but they're not drums.
They're not.
Don't treat them that way. Treat them as something different. And I always kind of appreciated that he took let's not just imitate the thing. And you see it now with like, the Roland electronic kits, and everyone's trying to make it sound like a real kit. I'm like, that's not fun. I'm hitting this thing that can do anything. Why not let it do anything? And that's always, Bruford's always been kind of pioneering and whimsical like that, which is one of the things that's great about him. You got this, and Gavin Harrison with the later band too. It's like you've got this serious music, and they just kind of dance over it. And as a drummer and a percussionist, it's like, that's so fascinating to be able to juxtapose that style over something that seems like it should be like more rigid.
Mm-hmm.
It just kind of blows everything up.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of Gavin Harrison, I mean, if any of y'all are fans of like Porcupine Tree or Steven Wilson, I mean, you might already know about King Crimson, but if you know about like Porcupine Tree, man, honestly, just listen to King Crimson.
And if you're a real Gavin Harrison fan, you're also into the Pineapple Thief.
Yep.
Yeah,
that's another band.
Yeah.
Plays
they were
tours
just
with.
at House of Blues a couple months ago. I saw them at House of Blues.
Yes, they were here recently. Yeah.
I was thinking, imagine. Yeah, I know we're talking a lot about like the technical aspect, how it's like difficult to play and all that, but I think if I can make an analogy, all right. Imagine that you're watching Michael Jordan. If you've ever had the pleasure of watching Michael Jordan live or even on television, okay? Imagine you're watching Michael, arguably the greatest basketball player that will ever live, okay? You watch him, you can see that everything he does is just effortless, and it's just expert Yoda level great, right? Now imagine that he's not in the Chicago Bulls, and he's playing like at some community college in like Nebraska somewhere. You know what I mean? There's like this amazing talent, right? This amazing like artistry of like sportsman, like, physicality, but you just can't see it because it's like, it's not like hugely popular. That's a little bit what it's like to be a King Crimson fan. A little bit, right? Because you got everyone else talking about like all these like huge bands and how great they are, and you're like, yeah, but discipline over here, you got to hear that, and the gamelan guitar stuff, There's just so much stuff, man, that's like innovative, and this stuff was like 40, 50 years ago, and it's still ahead of its time. Still.
Yeah, and still to this day, if you talk to people about, popular music, they might be into Tool or, some of the more modern bands. And you mention King Crimson, and they get this sort of look in their face. It's kind of like, huh? And I've heard of them, but I don't really know anything about them.
Right.
They're like, oh, well, here's some music if you can give them the music. I've turned dozens or hundreds of people onto Crimson. Not to mention, people just listen to the station and hear some King Crimson they may have never heard before.
Well, it's hard to know how to guide someone where to start, right? Because, like, would you just tell them, oh, go check out Lark's Tongues? Yeah, I don't know if that would be the...
I think you have to have context.
Yeah.
I mean, depending on where that person might be coming in from.
Yeah.
For instance, like, say they're like a Tool fan, you might want to turn them on to like Thrack and maybe work backwards.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Or somebody who's really into like post-punk or maybe Beefheart or whatever. All right, maybe start with the 80s stuff,
Yeah.
Yeah, or Zappa fans. That Zappa crossover period of like the early to mid 70s where they're kind of exploring all that like rhythmic modulation stuff. That's like in that sort of parallel universe,
If you feel like you've been living on a musical island of misfit toys,
Ooh, islands.
you belong with us. Right? And I'm sure that there's plenty of people out there that feel this way, right? Especially, I mean, if you're listening to Mr. Wizard and WZRD, you're already here for great music, right? Take the leap. Take the leap. Come see us. Pay the $10.
Yeah, I would say I'd say a very good percentage of our listeners know who Crimson is and what they would be getting into.
Right on.
But
take the leap.
For some of you younger people, you might want to come out and check it out.
Pack of smokes. Cost of a pack of smokes, man.
Not even anymore.
Not even, right?
like half a pack of smokes.
Oh, and Montrose Saloon has the coolest jukebox in Chicago. And if anyone can change my mind, go for it. But they got the coolest jukebox. Straight up. When I saw like Idols, I don't know if you ever heard that band, IDLES, punk band out of Britain. When I saw that on there, I was like, okay. Yeah, Montrose is cool.
Yeah, it's quite a unique musical palace over there.
Absolutely.
And I've seen some music over there before, and really, I was impressed. I've, been back a few times.
They respect quality music.
Yes, and they know what to book.
Yep.
And,
That's good to know.
and they're willing to bring people in from, other parts of the country. And,
They're bringing us in.
wow. Yeah, and you guys are from Chicago. So.
Yeah.
Well, I'm from Gray's Lake, actually.
He's
When
from
I-
the other part of the country.
Yeah, where Christ left his shoes,